Welcome everybody. It's Thursday night in Dallas, where it's cold, but not as cold as it's been for the last several days. Some people have electricity, others don't. It's been a very difficult time, but being that it's late February and Mardi Gras is about to happen, we thought it was really good to have a film that speaks to Mardi Gras and the Mardi Gras experience. But before we get to the film and our guest, there is one thing that I wanted to mention to all of you, and I'm sorry, this is a personal indulgence. There's a project that I've been working on for the last 2.5 years that is released today. It's called Firebones, Firebones, firebones.org. You can go there and just watch all 4.5 hours or 40 episodes of this drama, sort of absurdist, poetic drama that is meant to be seen on mobile devices, which you can't see because it's keyed out. And 1/3 of the episodes are audio narratives. So on those, if you wear headphones, they'll sound much better. You can hear the beauty of the sound design. So anyway, please check out Firebones. I think you'll find it a really interesting and unique cinematic experience. So tonight we're here to talk about The Order of Myths, Margaret Brown's film, which I believe is 2007, which is an incredible film and just had incredible access and a very different look at the experience of Mardi Gras. So we have some very interesting and really good and helpful guests with us. Kiwi Lanier, who works at the Sidewalk Film Festival. And so Kiwi, tell me, what do you do at the Sidewalk Festival, and what is the Sidewalk Festival? What makes it so great? Is there a sidewalk at the Sidewalk Film Festival?
Well, one of the things I do is I monitor our social media channels, and I did have someone who thought that the cinema was outside. It is not outside, but we are I think the largest film festival in Alabama. We're entering our 23rd year, I believe, this year. Time is not real to me, so I'm not sure if that's exact, but we moved our entire festival to a drive-in theater outside of Birmingham with like 6 weeks notice last year. And which, 0 out of 10 would not recommend doing that with only 6 weeks to prepare. But I think we were able to pull something off that was fun, and that, let people get out of the house and enjoy themselves in a safe way due to the pandemic. My title is Education Outreach Coordinator and Interim Marketing Coordinator. I do a lot of stuff. I do our year-round educational programming, which is for kids and adults. And I also do our social media and stuff. So
what is educational programming for you, for kids and adults?
I have about 17 programs right now, so I don't want to name them all, but we do, like, one example, we have been doing Book and Film Club online, where you read a book about film, watch a film that is discussed in the book, and then we have a Zoom about both of those things at the end of the month.
Oh, great. That's really
nice. It can be really fun. It's basically like diet film school. But it's definitely fun for me. Get to introduce people to filmmakers they might not know, or take a deeper dive into some work that they already like. So it's pretty much a win-win. But yeah, that's what I do.
So are some of these like film production things, or are they mostly about screenings? And do you have youth media kind of workshops?
Yeah, we do. We have classes that are more production oriented. And I'm doing my first in-school program right now.
Oh,
so yeah, that I would probably have planned a different time if I had known everything that was going to be happening right now. But I think it's going well, and yeah, so that is new territory for me, but I'm excited to be in it, excited to discuss the film.
Well, Kiwi, I've been teaching online for the last year, so if you want, I can give you some pointers, but at the college level. But I'm happy to help. There are good ways to do it. One more question before we leave about this. Are you doing any media literacy in your all the educational programs? Because I firmly believe that right now we need some major media literacy, so people don't read stuff or listen to radio and believe things that are clearly not true.
We've done some media literacy programming in the past. We don't have anything going on right at this moment or anything that's kind of ongoing, but we have done some kind of one-off seminars about that.
Great. So I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Zandashé, is that closer to the first time I tried it? Brown. So do you want to talk about what you do for the New Orleans Film Society and Festival and the great work that they're doing? And please turn your microphone on.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Zandashé Brown. I'm a writer and director originally from Rosedale, Louisiana. And I'm now the programming manager and artist development coordinator at the New Orleans Film Society. So we produce the annual New Orleans Film Festival. It's Academy Award qualifying. And while we screen films from all over the country, all over the world, we really like to champion Southern filmmakers and Southern films. In particular, that's kind of been our MO since, we've been around. And we also like to program, what I do personally is programming a lot of the conversations around the films that we screen, or just conversations around the state of film and filmmaking within the South in general. And upcoming is our South Summit, which is that exactly. We talk about the state of film in the Southern region particularly. And each year has a theme. So this year, our theme is centered around power dynamics and how we share and utilize our power within the South as artists. South Summit is free and open to the public. So I want to encourage everyone who's watching to attend. It's March 3rd and 4th, and you can find more information about it on the New Orleans Film Festival website.
Great. So Raquel, make sure that we put this in the newsletter so everybody can find that. Great. So do you want to talk about the New Orleans Film Society and the New Orleans Festival has a statement of principles about the films they show and the way they work. And do you want to talk a little bit about how that came about, what's in there, and what the effect has been?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always been a priority of the festival to champion the voices of people that are coming from the margins, whether that's people of color, queer, trans people, disabled. We really want to bring those stories into the fold because they're representative of who is actually a part of this community. So this past year, we took some time to really sit down and look at what our values were as an organization, but specifically in the programming team, we wanted to look at the way that we program our work and what are some of the things that, like some of the notions that qualify a film to be film festival worthy, how they're based in bias, in white supremacy and all these other things. And so we really challenged ourselves to reframe the way we understand what qualifies as good work, and who do we want to give a platform to with our festival that has so many eyes on the films that we've screened from all over the world. Whose work can we champion, and how can we ensure that there's a diversity of voices in the room, in the digital room, in the physical room. And so we've laid out a new set of programming guidelines. We also did this to just be transparent with filmmakers as well, because in the festival world, there's an expectation that, you submit your film to a festival and a festival determines whether or not your film is good enough for it. But how can filmmakers know if they want their project to screen at your festival? How do they know what you're looking for? How do they know what your values are? So it's also just a way of being transparent with people. And of course, it's not going to stop people from submitting their film who read or maybe skim our values and see no crossover whatsoever. But it is a way of helping people to understand how we program our work and what our process looks like when we make our decisions.
And so one of the things to think about when you do that is that you need to cast a wider net to get people to send your films to the festival. So what are the things you were doing as outreach to reach a broader audience that might otherwise apply to your festival?
Yeah, we've been looking a lot into community partnerships. I wish I had the exact number on hand, but we partnered with a lot of different community organizations last year to give free passes to the festival. So just, exposure is one big thing. But yeah, we partner with a lot of people locally and nationally and just throughout the Southern region to ensure that we're able to see their work, that they know about our festival. We offer, waivers when available, when based on people's needs, because film festival waivers can just take up so much of a filmmaker's budget. They add up very quickly. And part of the programming values that we've outlined, part of that whole outreach push is we're also setting up some other stuff in the future, more conversations between our programming team where we can bring in audiences and sort of make it a mutual conversation that, that everyone is a part of, where people can openly ask questions and get clarity around things that they're not sure of. So yeah, it's something that we are continuously figuring out how we spread it.
So, and we also on the tonight we have Maureen, who's many years worked with the man who made the film. When you think about a film about Mardi Gras, you think of Always for Pleasure. And Les Blank made a whole lot of films about culture, about food, about really interesting people. And Maureen, you edited how many of those films and worked with them for how long?
I worked with him for 20 years. And the first film that I worked on, the very first day when I did sound, when I was just learning, we filmed in Black French Mardi Gras in the middle of the Cajun country in Louisiana. And we started working from like 6 in the morning till after midnight, filming the whole day, the whole process, the cooking of the food, the country Mardi Gras, which is quite different from the city Mardi Gras. That's a whole other animal. And it was incredible. I mean, I knew at that point that I could never turn back in terms of making films, but it was hard work. I was lugging around a 20-pound Nagra tape recorder, and Les and I were connected by a cable. In those days, we had a cable that connected you, and so I'd have to follow him running around. He was chasing chickens and following people chasing chickens to catch for the gumbo. And anyway, it was extraordinary. And then we did many years later, we did Always for Pleasure. I think it was 78. We were there, and that was Always for Pleasure. Really is sort of about the parade traditions of New Orleans, and Mardi Gras features very strongly in it, especially the Mardi Gras Indians angle on Mardi Gras, which is a whole culture in New Orleans where there are African Americans who dress as Indians, but they make their own costumes by hand, just as in this film, Order of Myths. There's incredible handiwork that takes the people months and months and months of sewing, and every year they try to outdo the last year. And the tribes that are kind of based around neighborhoods in New Orleans are compete with each other for the best looking suit. And I'm sure that Zandashé can talk more about that, being in New Orleans, especially more up to date about what's going on there now, because we were there in the late 70s on that film. The other film that I worked on in New Orleans was a film called This Ain't No Mouse Music.
Yeah.
And this was after I was working with Les. I worked with his wife and our film partner, Chris Simon. We did a film about this man, Chris Strachwitz, who has this record label, our Hooley Records, American roots music label. And one of his first inspirations was New Orleans jazz. And so we filmed in New Orleans with the Treme Brass Band and some other people there, and so had a chance to be there again, and that was much more recent. But yeah.
So I just want everybody to realize when she said that she had to carry this thing called a Nagra was a sound recorder that was like the size of a big suitcase, which you wouldn't think would be so bad, except that in order to use it, you had to have 12 D batteries. Just think, those are the big batteries, and they're heavy, but there are 12 of them. And so this was really like on your shoulder, and it's not exactly very portable to move around. And then indeed there was this cable in order to get sync, because the film cameras in those days didn't go exactly 24 frames a second, and you had to record the difference between the picture and the sound. So there was this umbilical cord that went between that. So it just was very, just the process of filmmaking was much more physically exhausting. But I guess, Maureen, you were much younger back then, and you had a strong back, and you could kind of keep up.
Yeah. I also had to carry it during Mardi Gras in New Orleans through the streets. And that was, I remember at the end of the day, literally just lying on the floor with absolutely every inch of my body in pain from that. But of course we had an incredible time. I mean, we were following the Mardi Gras Indians going through the streets, and we were coming upon those parades, which looked a little bit like the ones in the film. And so we also made it to the French Quarter too, which was a whole other scene. So
well, speaking of the French Quarter, and that, Les is sort of well known for his films about eating and food. Food was a big thing for him. And you were on many shoots with him and were with him. What is the best meal that you ever had with Les Blank? With the best food, not the best company, but I'm sure there are times when you had something that was pretty extraordinary.
Well, I don't know if I can narrow it down. I mean, we made a film about garlic.
Yes.
And, we got to eat all the food in making the film called Garlic is as Good as 10 Mothers. And we ate food at Chez Panisse in Berkeley, which is sort of like a classy restaurant. And they celebrated Bastille Day with an all garlic meal, including dessert. And so some of those meals were incredible, but then some of the gumbos in Louisiana were just to die for. So it's really hard to narrow it down.
So just the last question before we move on to this film. So you spent more time with Les than most people that are alive now. What drove him to make so many films about culture and people? What was the driving force behind him?
I don't know, really. I mean, I think he seemed to, I think his own upbringing was not that. And I think because his upbringing was much more dry and not as interesting, as soon as he started hanging around in other communities, he started realizing, oh my God, there's some amazing things that these people are doing. And he wanted to hang out with them. You know, he ended up hanging around with Cajuns and Black French people and blues musicians. And then we, garlic eaters and gap-toothed women. And anyway, he just, and he was interested in quirky things. We ended up in Peru making a film about German director Werner Herzog making his film Fitzcarraldo in the Amazon. And
yes.
So
what was that like?
Well, that was a whole story all to itself, which would be a little bit much to deal with today. But our film was called Burden of Dreams,
An
And
excellent film, strongly recommended by anybody who loves movies and loves Herzog movies.
it was an early making of,
Yeah.
excuse me, and we really covered it, and hanging out in the Amazon and middle of nowhere, and with German, one of our titles that we considered was Germans in the Jungle.
So,
Story.
Kiwi, why don't we go to you? Being that you live in Alabama, what is the Mardi Gras like since this film? This film is what, maybe 13 years old now?
Well, I have attended Mobile Mardi Gras twice. I will be upfront and say that I was not very sober for either of those visits. But most people
Were
weren't.
many people, anybody sober in any of this film?
I don't know, but I will say, and I enjoyed my visit both times. One time I just went to the parades, but I also did get to go to a ball. And a lot of the stuff, well, the first thing to know is anytime you meet someone from Mobile, the second that they say they're from Mobile, they say, "Did you know that Mobile has the first Mardi Gras in the country?" And I'm like, yes, I know the whole story. It's like, it is. I did not know before moving to Alabama how big of a deal it was. And I was kind of like, what? Like, this is, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect before I got there. And then I went, and, when you go to Mobile in non-Mardi Gras times, it is pretty sleepy generally. Like, there's just not a lot going on. I mean, there's things to do, but it's just not as lively as it is during Mardi Gras. And yeah, basically everything just stops except for Mardi Gras, and that's like all everyone is doing. So it was very fun, very chaotic. I'm pretty sure I lost one of my shoes at one point. But things happen. It was a casualty of the party. But yeah, the ball was probably the weirdest part. Like, there's so much sort of pageantry and ritual, like, just throughout the entire night. It was really fascinating to watch, even in my somewhat like compromised level of awareness. It was definitely an experience, and this film really, it taught me a lot that I didn't already know about Mardi Gras just from experiencing it. It gave me a lot of context that I kind of wish I had had beforehand. But it definitely makes sense that the filmmaker is from Mobile, because my first thought was like, how is she getting this access?
And we have to say that. I think one of the things that's absolutely remarkable about this is the level of access they had to both the Black and white communities, that both of them gave them very, very, very close access to a time when both of the parties were like, it's very stressful to be the king and the queen of this major event and all the stuff you have to go through, and to have a film crew. Now, they didn't have to have a Nagra. They had a small little recorder and a smaller camera, but it's still, that was 2007, and they weren't that small back then. It was still not an easy thing, but it takes somebody who lived in that environment to be able to get that close and to have that kind of trust. I mean, some of those conversations are just really fascinating. I mean, and not ones that you would just tell anybody to. And I think it's really one of the sort of amazing things about this film, that you really get a level of honesty about issues of race that you don't often get verbalized from anybody. But Kiwi, what I was really asking in that question, and you probably don't know the answer, is at the end of this film, you have the African-American king and queen visit the white people's ball, which is a very interesting and bizarre scene. But it gives you this sense of hope that maybe more of that would be happening. So I was wondering, since 2007, has, to your knowledge, and I'm sorry, but you are our expert in Mobile today.
Okay, I accepted this when I agreed to come on here, but I mean, I will just speak for the ball that I went to. It was not very integrated. You could pretty easily tell like who was a member of the order, and who was kind of with them, or their guest. And yeah, I saw very few people of color at the ball that I was at, and but almost the entire staff that was like serving the food was people of color. And, you know, the fact that like nobody even batted an eye at that really was sad to me. It, you know, it clearly was just an expectation, and that I remember that really rubbing me the wrong way.
There was a moment in that film when at that ball, when somebody just hands a Black woman a glass.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember it, but she gives this glance like, which is, you know, it's really, to me, that's the whole film is in that moment.
Yeah.
That sense of privilege, like, oh, I, you know, whatever. And then there's a person the other side of that that's like, you know, what's going on here? You can't put a glass down yourself. You're like, you're that much of a, you know, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And it really kind of showed how those two worlds, in a moment in that scene where there was almost a sense of like things might be getting better. You saw them up dancing together, which was like the most hopeful moment in the whole film, because you could kind of sense that maybe they could. But then you go to the interviews with them and the guy's saying, you know, it is what it is, tradition is what it is. And, you know, and not understanding that tradition is what keeps people out of power. And you just say that's just the way it's been, is a way to sort of uphold all of the problems that we sort of have in our culture. And so this film sort of hits all the sort of deep issues that we are facing now that have never sort of been faced.
I was very struck by how everyone kept saying, oh, you know, well, it's tradition. Like, that's just how it's always been. And it reminds me of like the broken stair analogy. It's like, you know, you point to the stair when guests come over and it's like, oh, the stair is broken. Just step over it. And it's like, okay, but what if you fixed it? Like, you know, like that's also an option, instead of just, you know, pointing to the problem and saying, oh,
but that broken stair has been in our family for generations. It's the symbol of our challenge to walk up.
Yeah.
We won't have that anymore because we have to have a sense of change.
I would like to say
yeah, Zandashé, go on, please. Yes.
The stair isn't acknowledged. The stair isn't even acknowledged. There's no, hey, watch out for that broken stair. It's no, the stairs are completely fine. And then, you know, if you have an understanding of it, you're able to dodge it. But so many people, you know, get caught in that. So we've been having a lot of conversations around just like how Southern culture is really more of a true representation of this country as a whole, in the ways that we do and don't look at things, but we're honest about it, you know? Whereas I think the North or other regions are like a representation of what we aspire to or what we like to pretend we are, but the South is who we really are. And that broken stair analogy like says a lot about that.
So, I mean, I was going to say which is better, but they're both bad, you know?
Yeah, they're both bad.
So it's not like one is better than the other. So from your perspective of being in New Orleans, how is the events that happen in New Orleans and dealing with race different than it is in Alabama?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to be said about that. I'll start by saying, you know, I'm not from New Orleans. I'm from a more rural part of Louisiana, west. And so I had been to New Orleans Mardi Gras when I was younger, but the Mardi Gras that I grew up with, because we forget that, you know, Mardi Gras is a statewide celebration happening throughout Southern Louisiana. It looked more like Mobile's, you know, it was more rural. We probably have more horses and trail rides and people dancing on the back of the trucks, but it's more of a similar situation to that. And this past Fat Tuesday, actually, just this past Mardi Gras, I was talking with some friends about how interesting it is that Mardi Gras across our state in particular is such a time of unity and togetherness, and it's fleeting and it's very surface. I mean, people you know, cross sort of like racial lines and class lines and are dancing in the streets together. It's cross political lines as well, all in favor of, you know, just this celebration of raunchiness and drinking and eating and all these other things that we love very much here in Louisiana.
So there weren't those kind of distinctions, because in Alabama, there was clearly a Mobile. I mean, there's definitely a sense of class and history, and the person who's the queen is the person who comes from a certain family. I mean, some of those events were all about wealth and privilege and power, and who gets to go in, and you had to be, you know, how to get an invite. I mean, there is definitely, and so that kind of structure is not necessarily in place in New Orleans.
No, it still is. It still is. I think that the way that people socially interact is a lot different from the way that, you know, the society culture is sort of run. Like that New Orleans, all of Louisiana, but New Orleans is a place of very deep tradition. And so, you know, I wouldn't say that I'd heard about, you know, Mobile's like segregated Mardi Gras for years. And then I sort of paused to think about that, because in my head, Louisiana has never truly had a segregated Mardi Gras. But if you look at the people who are actually a part of so many of the oldest, you know, crews here in the city, they are mostly white. And so that tradition kind of holds place in that way. But yeah, and I think even in the film, they touch on sort of like the secrecy that comes with this tradition.
Oh,
I think that's true here as well, because if you're not a part of those societies, you don't know sort of what goes on around it. So it depends on, you know, I think in New Orleans and across Louisiana, there's not a black and white Mardi Gras per se, but there are many different ways to enjoy Mardi Gras and to take part in Mardi Gras. And one of them is very much steeped in tradition, is, you know, almost completely white, and class and who your family is plays a very big part in it. But I wouldn't say that it's this one versus this one. I think there's even a way that transplants here enjoy Mardi Gras that is completely foreign to me. Like, you know, I've never grown up putting on a costume for Mardi Gras or putting on glittery wigs or anything like that. So yeah, I would say it's less clear cut, but it's still there.
So one of the things you brought up, and it would definitely sort of intrigued me in the film, all the stuff with the mask were really fascinating. The scenes where they're going to that formal thing with the masks on, and the masks are really haunting. I mean, haunting in what they suggest. You can't look at those and not think of the Klan. I mean, you just can't. And then you have those shots that they have this interview with the guys from the downtown white club. And this guy's wearing the mask through that whole interview, and he's saying things that he would not have said without that mask on.
And they mention that they say, you know, the mask liberates a little bit. It's also worth noting that if you do a little research around where the Klan got their costume, a lot of it was from the pageantry of Carnival, and realizing how secrecy worked in their favor, because so much of it was just, you know, you want to go out and have a good time, but you have to go back and be somebody's politician or dentist, or doctor, or police officer the next day. So you have to mask up, and that worked in favor for them in the same way.
I was also surprised about how much money it takes to be how much money it takes to be a king or a queen. Now, obviously for the white pageant, they only can do it if they're from a certain family. So money is not so much of an option. But for the other houses, I mean, that's a lot of, I mean, it spurs on the economy, but somebody's got to pay for it. And generally they're people who don't have a lot of money that are paying for it. And then there's the whole thing of the floats, which cost a lot of money as well. So where's the money come from for these things? And Kiwi, I'll send to you because, do you know, Maureen?
Oh, I mean, people save because it's important to them.
Yeah.
And this happens in not I mean, in this culture, I know a community in Mexico where they actually distribute the jobs at the party. You know, like somebody's in charge of the chairs, somebody's in charge of, is the sponsor of
Like
the
film production.
somebody's, and yes, like film production. But people also save up, and because it's important to them and they value it and they put savings by. And like in certainly the Mardi Gras Indian tradition, it's part of, they spend the whole year working on their outfit. And it's also one of the things that I really felt when we were there doing Always for Pleasure, was that Mardi Gras is part of the identity of being somebody from New Orleans. It's not just the day of, it's something that is, there's before Mardi Gras and after Mardi Gras. You think about the next Mardi Gras. Once Mardi Gras is over, you start thinking about the next one. And there's not much of an after, because there's always the next one that you have to think about. And it really is a cycle of the year. And like in Mobile, in New Orleans, I know they start partying at least 2 weeks ahead of time, and they start having the balls, and they start having more parties, and they start having more parades. And as Zandashé was saying, I mean, one thing, I don't know if this is the case in Mobile, if there are all these different kinds of crews that are in all the different neighborhoods and all the different classes, and people are members of these crews, and some of them are very funny and silly, and some of them are old and traditional, and it really varies a lot. And so that does allow for participation of people, so that it's not like you have to feel left out, that you can't do X because you got something yourself. Like the Mardi Gras tribes, the Mardi Gras Indian tribes are all people really identify with their group and are very proud of it. And it's, it's not like they're coveting the white ball, there are balls, there's a Zulu ball too, and there's all kinds of balls. And anyway, it just feels like it's very much so much a part of the fabric of the community, that it's not just isolated to the kings and queens of the white balls and so forth.
And Maureen, I think what you're saying here is that it's so tied to people's cultural identity of who they are.
Yeah.
And when something is deeply tied to who you are, you'll save your money and you'll forego a few other things to have a physical manifestation of that with all of the things that you create that sort of make that happen. But what's interesting is that these things, these self-identifiers, can be good or can be bad, because they bring a lot of baggage of the past, because they are all symbols from the past. Everything, then all of these things come from generations and generations. And what are those things saying about the present and the past and who you are in that past? I mean, these are all kind of interesting questions to think about, because these are literally tribes that people are connecting to, and they have that sense of pride in their tribe. And just saying those words sounds awkward and difficult, right?
Yeah. It does seem like they're, I mean, the fact that people create new crews to be able to accommodate, like some of the crews now are integrated crews, purposely in New Orleans, for example. And because they don't like the other. I don't know how, I mean, I would be interested to know how it's changed since we were there in the 70s. I'm sure it's changed a huge amount, and how it compares with the way it is in Mobile. Have you had very much experience to be able to see the changes that have gone on, Zandashé, about the in terms of Black and white people doing more things together, or crews that have come up because to try to fight that, the segregation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say it's changed a whole lot. I think to the most, you see integration in terms of like maybe, in fact, I think last year or yeah, last year's Mardi Gras or maybe the one before it, it was a really big deal that um, LSU's band marched in and played in Zulu, because the Zulu Queen was an LSU alum. And I think that might have been the first time, or at least the first time in a long time that something like that has happened. And you do see a bit more integration on some of the floats, especially the smaller, like community-based crews. Like it's definitely happening there. But your Bacchus, your Endymion, all of the big runners. One, it's hard to see if they're integrated because they're in full, regalia. But yeah, I can't tell you the last time that I've seen a king or queen or a member of the court on one of those floats who was not white. So I think in that regard, it's very much the same. When you go to, and when I spoke to, the integration piece and other parts of Louisiana, when you go to the country though, it's such a different situation. You're gonna have, old white conservative men dancing their butts off to rap music. You're gonna have young Black boys singing country songs. It's just everybody just wants to have a good time. And that's not, justifying everything that happens all the other days out of the year, but that happens in New Orleans as well. But to answer your question in short, the crews I think are still pretty close to what they were.
So what is happening both in New Orleans and Mobile, excuse me, this year with the pandemic going on?
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Like
On our
nothing?
end. There was I saw a joke because and Kiwi brought this up about people from Mobile mentioning Mardi Gras, and they always do. So we were, so many people in New Orleans were actively like, please don't come here. There's a pandemic. Last year's Mardi Gras was a super spreader. And I've seen people be like, please go to Mobile. They've been begging you to come there for years. So I don't know if Mobile had anything, but I live not far from the quarter, and some tourists in my neighborhood asked on Mardi Gras Day, like, hey, what would happen if we were to go to Bourbon Street? And I said nothing, because they've the police have fenced off underneath the bridge, so even Mardi Gras Indians like couldn't really gather. And they ran through the French Quarter. So there was no Mardi Gras, but we have had like people decorate their houses, and so people kind of drove around to look at house floats in the city, but that's about the extent of celebration this year.
No Zoom version of Mardi Gras?
No, I think people are tired of Zoom, and they want to get drunk off camera at this point.
Right, somebody can record what they're saying.
Right.
All right, I have a silly question. What's the deal with moon pies? I don't think I've ever had a moon pie, and I don't know, but I know about the necklaces, but I didn't. It's like totally
Is that a
new.
Mobile thing?
Yeah, they were based in Mobile. And so every year on New Year's Eve, instead of having a ball drop, they have a moon pie drop. And there's like a moon pie that's like on the side of a building, and it goes down at midnight. But yeah, moon pies are a Mobile based snack. So they love their moon. I don't really like moon pies, but like nobody slander me from Mobile. I'm not from there. Like
So what is a moon pie? I assume it's like two pieces of something with something in between.
Yeah, it's like chocolate with like some cake inside. I don't know. I mean, it's fun to try, but it's not something that I like, wake up at night like, man, I really wish I had a moon pie. But yeah, I will say that Mardi Gras in Mobile was not, I don't know that it was outright canceled. People were sort of discouraged from gathering in the official sense. But on Tuesday was when the big winter storm was coming through here. So like people didn't really go out and gather because of the cold also. So it was it wasn't outright canceled, I don't believe, but it was very subdued from the pictures that I was able to see.
I'm just
So.
surprised that they didn't sort of say, hey, we're going to do this in the summer. We'll have a summer version of this. I mean, because
Yeah,
it's so tied into culture and commerce. I mean, what are the alcohol companies going to do? They'll go bankrupt.
yeah. I actually work a lot with a like a graphics company here, and they do a lot of stuff for sporting events. And, you know, I imagine there are a lot of kinds of businesses that are hit really hard because, like, you know, they probably make a lot of money printing those giant banners and, like, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure that it's hurting everybody. But, you know, I just wish that things had improved by now to the point where we wouldn't be having this conversation. But, you know, time hopefully marches on, and hopefully next year we'll be able to resume some semblance of a normal Mardi Gras.
So Kiwi, let me, and I want to ask all of you this. Can you tell me one scene in the film that particularly moved you or was really important to you? That sort of summed up what the film meant to you?
I mean, I would say probably towards the end, where, you know, there's a scene, there's an interview where, you know, somebody is like, oh, well, nothing needs to change. It's one of the older interview characters. I can't remember which one.
The old guy, the really old guy.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, right after that, you cut to the Mardi Gras King, Max, and, you know, he's sort of propped up to be like, oh, you know, look, there's hope because they attended this ball. But then he's right after that scene saying the exact same thing, like, oh, I don't think it's tradition. I don't think it needs to change. I mean, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with the South. You know, as I think many people do who live here. You know, I want to see some progress, and there are a lot of people here who want to see progress, but for just as many people that want to see progress, there are a bunch of other people saying, no, we don't want that. And so it just feels like anytime we make progress, it's one step forward, two steps back. And that just really hit me in the soul.
And I think it gets into that sense of tradition and history and cultural identifiers, and you know, that's where they find their sense of worth in that. And that's why all of those things, the events, what the crown is made of, what the you know, the whole thing, all of those things are identifiers of a way of life. And the way of life, even for people who are not wealthy, who are white, they ascribe to that universe and will stick up for that universe. And these are kind of symbols of that life and what that life represents. So you're right in that scene where you have an older person and a younger person essentially espousing what I think is the view the filmmaker wanted us to get from the film, and that juxtaposition really drives that point home. Zandashé, what would you say is a scene that we didn't talk about already?
Yeah, I was just thinking when you asked that question, you know, there's a scene in there that was so cringy to me. It's when like I think a couple of members from the Black Mardi Gras crew came over, and they were looking at some of the floats from the white one, and
they were renting a float.
Yes,
they couldn't afford it.
Float, and
how much alcohol was on that table?
So you know, the expected amount, right?
The expected amount.
And and they just the way that conversation happened, you know, I was thinking about how so much of this is to sort of so much of the way that they present how these two Mardi Gras exist are to save face, right? And so you see the men from this Black crew just sort of extending appreciation, saying, you know, oh, we respect y'all so much. You bring a lot of people joy. And the response that they're met with is just so uncomfortable when they say, you know, yeah, your gratitude check has been deposited. And they're like, kind of going back and forth. Oh, did it go through? It went through this year. It's just, there's so much coded underneath that entire conversations from both ends that I remember having to pause after it. And then of course there is the scene at the very end, which I think just puts everything into context, where the filmmaker is interviewing her grandfather and he says, there's something I want to tell you, but you do not have my permission to record. The screen goes off and I was like, that is it. That is what this is we keep our truth kind of in the, quieter places. And I think the same is happening for members of the Black crew, who are trying to be hopeful and saying, this is the first time we've visited and maybe we can imagine more of this. But I think it was more difficult for them to be real about what that Mardi Gras has looked like. So yeah, it was such an interesting watch for me.
So we should hit up Margaret Brown and find out what it was that she said
I'm
they couldn't put
dying
in the
to
film.
Dying to know.
Well, you can find Margaret Brown on Facebook. You can ask her yourself.
Yeah.
Maureen, what scene really sort of spoke to you? And let me ask you this: is there a scene that resonated to be something similar to what you shot when you were there, when you were in New Orleans? A
Well,
harder question, I'm sorry.
I mean, one of the things we did not do was focus on the balls and the big crews. We avoided them purposely because that's not what we were interested in. And we did focus more on the Mardi Gras Indians. And it was really fun. I mean, I felt really privileged to be able to be with them, because there were a few white people. The guy who was taking care of us, that was with us, is our friend Michael P. Smith, who's this incredible photographer. He has since passed away. And he was someone who had really become part of the Black community, really learned how to be there and had friends and did a lot of photography in the Black culture in New Orleans, was really knowledgeable about it. And so because we were with him, it allowed us to go into even the rehearsals in the bars like the week before or whatever, which were just amazing. It was like all this incredible drumming and chanting and, having fun and drinking and so forth. And I guess one of the poignant moments for me was when the kids couldn't even receive the trinkets from the white floats. That just blew me away. Here are, toys, just trinkets for people. Why would they not throw them to any kid? It was just so weird. And the father was totally aware of it. And I just thought, oh my God, they really are like that? Is that what they do? They don't even throw trinkets to the Black kids that are on the parade route? That's really nasty. And it, for a kid having to learn that at a young age, that, that's like an early part of learning about the way the society is, and it's very poignant. Yeah, anyway, so we really avoided the big crews, and we were with the Wild Tchoupitoulas as they crossed one of these big parades. It was a big deal for them, for the Wild Tchoupitoulas, to stop the parade so that they could go through. They were so excited about that they actually stopped this big parade so they could party through. And then going to ending up in the French Quarter was also sort of like a nod to that part of it, more than what the film was really about. So yeah, it was a contrast. It was a real contrast of experiences.
So Maureen, where can one see Always for Pleasure?
I think the best place is the Criterion Collection has a streaming platform,
Yeah.
and they have most of Les Blank's films and
Mhm.
that I was involved with. Do you know what their streaming platform is called? I can't
The
remember.
Criterion Channel, I think.
It is called the Criterion Channel. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, they have incredible films, and
Yeah. No bad films, only good films.
yeah, and they also did an incredible box set of Les Blank films that was very extensive, complete with filmmaker commentary, photographs, all kinds of other cool stuff for anybody that still buys DVDs.
Well, Maureen, you are very lucky that you got to work with Les for a long time, and you know, Les experienced the world in a way that we won't, because he went to those places and talked to those people in a way that got them to talk to us. You know, he was very special, and I'm glad that you got to work with him and help him make those films, because they enrich our culture in very, you know, real ways. So in the few minutes we have left, Maureen, what are you working on? Let's give everybody a chance to promote what you're doing, because you're doing something, I'm sure, right?
Yes. Two things, I guess, that are sort of immediate. I'm trying to finish editing a film called Pleistocene Park for a director named Luke Griswold Turgis. Hopefully later in this year, you'll start to hear about Pleistocene Park. And it's about this crazy Russian scientist in Northeast Siberia and his son, who are trying to recreate the mammoth steppe ecosystem to bring back large herbivores to repopulate the steppes of Siberia in hopes of mitigating melting permafrost. So it's kind of a crazy story. I didn't go there. I'm just the editor on that one.
Yeah.
But the filmmaker spent like 6 or 7 summers filming there. And he got really involved. In fact, he got a Russian wife out of the deal, and now he just had a baby with her. But a film I'm directing, which hopefully you'll also start to hear about, is called The 9 Lives of Barbara Dane. And it's a film about this woman who now is about to turn 94. She's still with us. She was American music legend, blues, jazz, folk singer, political activist, white woman. And she both made history and participated in some of the important time periods, like all through the civil rights movement and the anti-Vietnam War movement. And she's still kicking it. And we filmed her doing concerts at the age of 89 in
Wow.
New York, LA, Berkeley, San Francisco, and Havana, Cuba.
That sounds great. Havana, it's great. And I'm sure, just as the sound recorder has changed over a while, editing has changed significantly from editing film, which is very difficult and time consuming, to what you're able to do now. And I'm so glad you're still actively doing that and changing the world frame by frame. Kiwi, what are you working on?
I'm working on a lot, but I think the things that you can sort of help with from anywhere would be Book and Film Club, which we're doing remotely until at least June. I ship the books out so you can participate from anywhere. Next month we're doing James Bond, and the month after that, in a complete pivot, we're talking about the Muppets. So this year's lineup is kind of, there's something for everyone. So I would encourage you to check out our website if you want to learn more about that. And yeah, our call for entries for films and screenplays is open right now, and our next deadline is March 15th. So
And when is the festival?
the festival is August 23rd through 29th.
All right.
Which in my head, it's like still March 2020. So like that is kind of crazy to me, but yeah, you can find out more about us at sidewalkfest.com, and follow us on social media at Sidewalk Film. It's usually me posting, so
Okay.
you know, you can communicate indirectly.
Zandashé, what are you working on?
Yeah, on the filmmaker side, I'm gearing up to direct a short film, a short Southern Gothic horror film that I wrote called Benediction in the summer. And we were fortunate enough to have been selected for the Tribeca Chanel Through Her Lens Women's Filmmaker Program in the fall.
Excellent.
So yeah, we're really excited to push that out, and a couple of other projects around that that are picking up steam. And then on the arts administrator NOFF side, our festival is in November this year, and our submissions are open. So if you have a film, please do submit on Film Freeway. And I mentioned South Summit. I'll say that again. That's March 3rd and 4th. It's free and open to the public to register. And then shortly after that, in the middle of March, is the French Film Festival, which will also be a great time. So stay tuned for all that stuff. Our website is neworleansfilmsociety.org.
Well, thank you all for the great conversation.